Hi everyone, Jeff Scholes here, and welcome to the second of my short LinkedIn videos where we share ideas and experiences to help you develop the skills that are needed as a financial advisor. In this video I want to talk about what we really mean by the advice process, why it might not always go to plan, and how we can best tee it up to give the best outcomes for you and the client. So, focusing on getting things off to a good start. Let's start with the ISO definition of the advice process, which states there are 6 stages. So these things here. What have we got? Establishing the client and financial planner relationship, gathering data on the client's goals and expectations, analyze and evaluate the data, develop and present the plan, implement the recommendations, and monitor the plan and the relationship. So all well and good, a nice clear process. But the fact that it's a process makes it very easy to forget that there are real people involved here, and those people have their own preconceptions, their complications, their quirks, and it also makes it feel as though each step in the process will naturally follow on from the one before, and that's not the reality, particularly when you're new to the advice role. There are lots of reasons why people might not follow the path we expect them to. So perhaps they don't understand the process. They have different expectations. Perhaps they don't see value in the process, or they have a different view of the world and they have different life experiences. Any number of reasons. So I prefer to think of the advice process as a journey, and it's a shared journey between you and the client. So you both need to know where you're going, have the same destination in mind, know how you're going to get there, and be aware of any planned stops, and actually agree what you're going to do if there's any detours or delays. But probably one of the key things is you actually have to both want to get there. Too many advisors come across objections later on because the client never really wanted to go on the journey anyway. They hit an obstacle and the client decides it's not worth the effort of carrying on. Now, why is that? It's because the destination didn't really matter to the client, and that destination might be the financial advice process. We'll look at this in a later video, but at this point, I want you to have a rule that you never go down any path until the client is metaphorically begging you to go down that path with them. So, before we can start to look at each stage on the advice journey, we have to talk about how we can encourage people to come on the journey with us, how we can make it a shared experience, and actually what motivates clients to get involved in the first place. So there's loads we can and will cover in later videos, but I want to start with the very first encounter a potential client has with an advisor, so the initial contact. Let's just assume you're at an event surrounded by people you've never really met before, and you've been hearing someone talk about their life, their family, their job, whatever, and you're thinking that maybe they could benefit from your advice. So I've got a question. How are you going to get them to a state where they're open to agree to have an initial discussion with you? Now, one option is to explain what you do, so explain your role. And I've got some possible explanations. Let me know what you think. So here's one possible explanation. I've been talking to somebody I've never met before and they're asking me what my job is. Let's have a look. Right, what I do is carry out a full fact find in order to establish your objectives, priorities and risk profile. Then I complete a thorough analysis of those objectives in order to develop a suitable financial plan that will enable you to meet your aspirations within your available budget whilst maximising tax efficiency. Then I support you in order to implement those plans with suitable providers that have been filtered in order to meet the criteria. I don't know about you, but I lost the will to live about halfway through that sentence, and the potential client probably ran for the hills 5 seconds in. Another option that you might want to think about is hinting about the outputs of the process. So I've got another example here. So yeah, I work with clients to help make them sure that the things they want to happen, and make it less likely that the stuff that life throws at them doesn't derail their plans. Now, I'm not saying that the second option is perfect, and it probably isn't using the words that you would, but what it does do is make it more likely that the person you're talking to will say, "Oh, how do you do that?" And that is what we're after, that initial spark of interest. Now, if this was a full workshop, we'd have time for you to try out some introductions, find a couple of examples that work for you in different situations, and start the process of making them into a habit. That way you've got something you can rely on that you can use whenever you need it when you meet potential clients. Now, this isn't a workshop and I'm not your teacher giving you homework, but for all new advisors, I'd suggest that you invest some time practicing ways of explaining your role and also what you can do to make it more likely that the response from the person you're talking to will be something along the lines of, "Oh, tell me more." Now, maybe people watching this video can share some of their ideas in the comments section below. Okay, now in future videos I want to talk about what's actually happening both physically and mentally as the advisor and client work their way through every stage in the advice process. To do that, we'll need to consider the emotional, rational, sometimes irrational steps that we all take every time we make every single decision. Be that scratching an itchy nose or deciding to invest £200,000 into an EIS. And that's exactly what I want to look at in my next video. It's going to be the steps we all take before we act and the behaviours that an advisor can apply to work with rather than against these fundamental steps. Okay guys, thanks for listening. Please add your own thoughts or comments below and let's keep the advice skills conversation going.